Welcome, everyone, to the Monday, October 6th Barrington Select Board meeting. At this time, I'm calling the meeting to order. Could I have a roll call of attendance?
Zamaco present.
And Shrek, aye.
Hardikoff here. Could you that choose to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm sorry, sir. At this time, we would do an agenda review and approval. I would like to make a motion to remove on the consent agenda E, which is the General Assistance Guidelines. I have not been able to obtain a copy of just the changes, and I would like to review those. So I'm looking for a second on that.
Sure. Second.
Okay, and could I have a roll call on whether to remove that until next week?
Zamaco, aye. Capello, aye.
And Shrek, aye.
Hardikoff, aye. I guess 2 weeks. 2 weeks? When are we meeting again?
Yeah, the Human Resource
Next
Administrator Welfare Caseworker will be back, and we'll be able to get a red line version
Awesome.
of the specific changes.
Okay,
I move we accept the consent agenda as amended.
excellent.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Zamaco, aye. Capello, aye.
And Shrek, aye.
Hardikoff, aye. Motion carries. Thank you all. Next is public comment. If anyone online wishes to speak, please mouse over your computer or laptop, click on the beautiful hand icon at the top of your screen, and you'll be recognized. Seeing as no one has requested it, anyone in-house would like to speak? Seeing as no one wishes to be recognized, I will close public comment. And I will move to the invited guests. Select Board Liaison report out, please, sir.
Thank you. I don't have a whole lot because we're going to meet tomorrow night, but what I have from the last meeting is that monthly we have a student from each one of the high schools. It rotates, come in. And last month we had the young gentleman from Dover High. And one of the things we talked about was how the school was adapting to the new law of no cell phones in school. And he said that all in all, they're doing pretty well. The kids expected it. So it was a pretty seamless thing. We haven't had any issue in Barrington with it. I don't think any kid above 5th grade doesn't go to school with a cell phone in their pocket. But anyway, that they have to shut their phones off as soon as they get to school, and they can't turn them back on until they leave. We're getting ready to do our budget process. I think we're going to approve a budget committee of 3 members tomorrow night, but again, it's on the agenda, so that'll get discussed. But what I heard is that they had 3 people interested. I think 1 or 2 people are coming back that were on the committee before. 3 of them didn't come back because of time constraint reasons, and I think there's 1 new one. But again, don't hold me to that. One of the things we'll be looking at is I mentioned a couple weeks ago when I was here that our school class size numbers are down, and most of our class sizes are right now in the 1st through 4th grade or 100 or less. So that's one of the things the board will have to look at over the next couple of months, as to see what we want our class sizes to look like, and whether that will mean that we'll eliminate any classrooms or not. But it is one of the things we'll be looking at, and certainly with you folks are aware of it anyway, with sizable budget increases, and we're getting less federal aid. There's less money coming from the feds, grants. Some of the stuff that has been approved, the money hasn't showed up yet. So it creates a little bit of a financial conundrum. So certainly as we go through the process, we'll be, like you folks, having some pretty tough decisions to make getting through it. The school signs, the state put up the school zone signs on Route 9 in the area of the middle school. And there has been a noticeable police presence in the morning, in the afternoon, not every single day, but they are around there trying to at least, I don't know, you'd have to talk to the police chief on what kind of traffic they're getting, but they have been in the area, and so we'll see. The committee met the other day, the select board and the school board committee met with Connor, Indiana. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. And one of the things we talked about is the signage. We'll be working on getting signage installed, new signage installed on Ramsdale Lane in the area of the ECLC. And there'll be some installed on Malago Road, and we will begin the process of looking at options that would potentially include a flashing light when school's in session. And we're also going to talk to the state about what it would take to get a timer on the light down on 125 at elementary school. It flashes all the time. And what the state says is that you become blind to it because it just 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, it's just sitting there flashing. So having one on a timer that operates during the times of the day that you want the traffic to slow down in the area has a more positive effect. So we're looking at those. Them are things that we'll be looking at and seeing what it's going to cost to get that done.
Couple quick questions since we've just approved the Malago Road and Ramsdale signs. What's coming out the back of the school other than the buses onto Malago Road?
It is supposed to be only the buses.
Okay.
Today, a car get in the middle of us. But
Okay.
it's supposed to be buses and emergency vehicles only.
Okay, but no children are leaving through there.
No,
Okay.
they're not supposed to be.
And then what are we doing about, like, next Thursday is an early release day at ECLC on Ramsdale? And what will we be doing with timing those flashing lights so that when there's early release days, it's impacting the school zone?
That's a good question. So depending on what whether we would, it all has to do with money, and it all has to, the more you're willing to pay, the better system you can get. So whether we would have a system that would work in that 45-minute window in the morning when school at the elementary school and middle school is opening up for the day, and the 45-minute window at the end of the day, or if we would look at something more elaborate where they could actually sit at the computer right in the SAU and go, oh, today's an early release day, or there's no school today, or whatever, and they could reprogram it so it wouldn't operate that day. But again, it depends on what the cost is and where, what the district is willing to spend.
Are the buses entering through that back entryway on Malago in the morning, or are they coming in off of 125?
So it's both.
Okay.
The buses that are traveling on 125 stay on 125 and they come in, and when they get to the elementary school, they circle around. They circle to the left and go clockwise around the back of the building and discharge the kids on the side of the building, what would be the D side of the building. And then the buses that come down Route 9 come in Malago, and they come in the back entrance through Malago Road into the back and discharge students. When the buses leave to head to the ECLC to drop students off up there, every one of them goes out the back entrance onto Malago Road and up Route 9.
Okay.
And then in the afternoon, the gate is opened up so that all the buses enter the elementary school property through the Malago entrance.
Okay, thank you for that. Helpful. Okay, anything else?
Talked about the cell phones, enrollment, school zone. Nope, I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Up next, under our elected leaders series, I'd like to invite State Representative Len Turcott. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here again. Good to see you all. Get out my glasses so I can see what I'm reading. Just want to give you, for those of you who don't know me, just a little bit of a background. Fifth term representative now, representing the towns of Barrington and Stratford. Served 2 terms on labor. My 3rd term, I was multi committees, including labor, finance. I was on redistricting, as well as a senior advisor in the majority office. Last term, I served as chairman of the municipal and county government. That's where I became very involved with really the main reason I wanted to speak with you all tonight. Personally, I've been this term, due to my time on municipal and county as chairman, killing the number of bills that I killed last year, they did not want me back as chairman because they wanted a lot of this stuff to pass. I'm also I'm 40 year here now at American Airlines. I'm flying 787s worldwide. Spent many years as a negotiator, board of director, committee chairman at our Pilots Association of 16,000 pilots. Also been an investment and wealth advisor for the last 12 years. Been in Hampshire my entire life, born and raised, and been in Barrington 34. The main reason I'm here is to talk about state mandating zoning. I know there are a few other items, and Bannon had a couple questions that were forwarded to me a long time ago that we can discuss, but the reason I'm here, I want to talk about decision-making, local decision-making. When I was chairman of municipal and county government last term, we had maybe 8 or about 10 bills that came through. What we have going on is there are a couple groups of individuals who are working in concert to try to take state mandates and force them onto towns. One thing I want everybody to realize, this is not a partisan issue. This is a very non-partisan issue. Last term, like I said, when I was chairman of the committee, we killed 7 of the 8 bills by around a 2/3 vote. And out of that 2/3, it was half Democrats, half Republicans. What we have right now is, in the 2 parties, we have the extremes, neither ends of the parties are working in concert with these mandates. In addition, and you'll understand this one because I'll give you the prime example, we also have special interests who have joined in with these individuals. They've seen an opportunity, so they've opted in. And I'll give you a quick example before I move on. You all know this last year with the warrant articles we had in Barrington, warrant article to the minimum lot size up to 3 acres. You also know you had a gentleman working feverishly to change that. I got a call, believe it or not, from the gentleman's lobbyist, if you will. He's a state lobbyist. And he tried to get me to send a letter to all you and the town saying, yes, we have got to keep our lot sizes small. Which I said, I'm not. One, agnostic to it. I have my personal feelings on where we should be going. I said, I'll be damned if I'm going to tell the people of Barrington what we need. That's a decision for the Barrington. She didn't like that very much, but that's the bigger, one of the bigger issues. We already have the process in place. If a town wants to change their zoning, they can do it. An article. Been doing that for just almost 100 years now. We're granted the authority by the state to do that. Almost 100 years ago. I can find somewhere in all my notes, I've got the actual RSA that says it. We'll talk about that later. But anyway. That hasn't been on the whole time, sorry.
Okay, it picks up right here.
It still picks it up. It'll be better now.
All right, very good. So as I said, we've got, and the groups who have joined up with what I will call the extreme of both parties are the special interest groups. You've got the New Hampshire Housing, the business groups. They see an opportunity to go in. I told you when I was on the chairman of the municipal and county, we were able to kill all these bills. Now, I was put on that committee because they thought I was just going to pass these through and go through. And when I started understanding what was going on, I said, yeah, no, it's not going to happen. This is a local decision. So what happened this past year is leadership, House leadership, my party leadership, formed a new housing committee. And it was called the House Housing Committee. Now, notice the name housing. They didn't call it the zoning committee, but they called it the housing committee. And that's been, if you all have heard probably 10,000 times the word housing crisis. So they've used that as a way to go in now and manipulate and force these state mandates on. Now, this to show you how stacked this rubber stamping committee was. Within that committee this year, when they voted on their bills, and I forget how many they had, probably close to 20, maybe more, the total votes came out of there. Yay votes, 270. I'm combining all the bills they did, 270 to 3. Now, if anybody follows the state legislature, you'll understand that normally, at least when I was chairman of that one committee and the other committees I'm on, once in a while you'll have a unanimous, but most of the time it's usually split down party lines. So to get something like this, you understand that it was formed for the sole purpose of rubber stamping these state mandated bills. Now, one of the groups that I talked about, I call them the ideologues. They argue for property rights, and they keep saying, well, this is a property rights issue, it's a property rights issue. But what I keep telling people is, I haven't had anybody, not a single citizen in this town or anybody I know who have come to me and said, I want my property rights and you need to do, not one. It's the individuals on these extremes that are doing it, and they use the words property rights. But the problem is when you take these state mandates and you give property rights to these special interest groups and the ideologues, you're taking away the property rights of the abutters. I'm going to give you a great example. It's my favorite example. This past term, the term when I was there, we killed it. But this term, they passed it, even though Governor Ayotte said she would be a proponent of local decision-making on zoning. And that was HB 577, which talked about accessory dwelling units, okay? Up until this past year, every town had to allow an ADU attached, basically. Municipality, I got to use the right words, every municipality had to allow an ADU, accessory dwelling unit, to be attached. And the thought process behind that was in-law apartments. All right, we want to be able to do this and this. Okay, prior to that, it was like any other zoning issue you had. It was if the town wanted to do it, you could go and put it through and do it. 2 years ago, they forced you to, or actually this happened probably about 6 years ago. Last year, they came back and tried to do it, to put 2 ADUs on each property, all right? An attached and a detached. Now think of that second detached accessory dwelling unit. It's basically another house, Okay. And they passed that this year. Prior to this, also on the accessory dwelling unit, when you had an attached dwelling unit to the main house, the owner of the property had to occupy one of the two units. They did away with that this term. You also had to have a familial relationship in the units. That's gone. So what this bill will do, and I'll let you also know I've already introduced 2 bills on this to recapture this, to bring it back to the way it was, because they slid this through on the consent calendar when nobody was looking. And I will take it back as far as I can. Now, the problem's going to be on that is going to be to get the Senate and, of course, the governor to go along now that she's already signed it. But here's the example I give on the accessory dwelling unit. Take this development behind you, okay? Now, I'm assuming they probably have some kind of protective covenants, but let's just say for the sake of argument they don't, or find any other cul-de-sac or small neighborhood in town that doesn't. What happens with this bill, and this will happen gradually over time, it won't be like that, it won't be tomorrow or the next day or next year, but over time what's going to happen is the first person, we'll use this as the example, one of the owners sells or decides, hey, wait a minute, I can put an attached ADU onto my property and I can rent that out, and then I can build up to a 950 square foot unit without, by right, nobody can tell me I can't do it. And that'll be that's almost a small house, and I'm going to rent that out. So you end up with the first person, he turns his current property into a rental units. And then the next person does it, and the next person does it. Now, again, it happens over time, but gradually over time, the single-family neighborhood that you bought to be in, because it's a single-family neighborhood and you want a backyard and you don't want to be in a rental neighborhood, turns into a rental neighborhood. All right. And that's the problem with a lot of these bills that have been passed, and a lot of the bills, the same bills that we're going to try to retake. There's a big group of us who have put in a bunch of bills to retake a lot of these. Another one they tried to do, and it kind of related to your 3-acre minimum lot, SB 84 they put in. They got so much flack. They wanted to limit the maximum lot size in the state everywhere. They want to apply these one-size-fits-all, to everybody. And Barrington's not the same as Manchester, is not the same as Errol, New Hampshire, or Keene, or whatever. But they wanted to limit it to an 1.5 acre lot, maximum size, statewide. You want 3 acres in Barrington? Screw you. It's 1.5. You can't do more than 1.5, right? But they got so much flack on it that they moved it up to 2 acres, and then they still got so much flack that at the end of last year they retained it. And then I just learned the other day that they finally went to it and they did an interim study, which basically kills it. And a lot of these that we put up such a good floor fight and were able to kill some of them that they didn't want to go through it again and lose them. So that's why we were able to still kill many of them, but a lot of the real bad ones still got through.
So this came up at planning board last time, so it's pretty much dead in the water. Is that
Which
what-
one?
84, Senate Bill 84.
It is. We don't know what they're going to do this term. I've been watching the bills that are being filed. The bills were filed last week, the deadline. So far, we're up to 1,074 bills.
And are you going to talk about House Bill 859? That was also discussed at planning board, about zoning ordinances.
Say that again. My hearing is not good after 40 years in the airplane.
HB 859.
Off the top of my head.
Related to single-family residential uses and their associated acreage requirements, so something similar.
I'm sure I have it in here somewhere. Let me just write it down, and if I don't come to it or don't find it, I will
let you know
Okay,
about it.
great, thank you.
859. The other one that's, actually, there were two others that were really bad. One of them passed, and this is HB 399. What they did is they rammed this through in the first month. They got it through the House, the Senate, to the governor's desk, and they formed a commission to study the current zoning laws. Now, I can tell you, a matter of fact, I could have told you, and I was right on over half, who was going to be on that commission, because it's a rubber stamp commission, just like the housing committee. It's going to be the same thing. The final report isn't due until November next year. I guarantee you it's already written, because I know about half of the players on there, and they're the same individuals who want to gradually. The ideologues on my side of the aisle, they want to eliminate all zoning in New Hampshire, all zoning. Eliminate it. But they know they can't do it all at once, so they're pecking away at it. The gentleman calls it, what was it? Debundling or unbundling zoning. Very dangerous, and they're succeeding at doing this. And this is why I came to you. It's gonna require a lot of people getting involved, select boards getting involved, whatever, if you want to retain your ability to control the zoning.
And we have currently 2 members of our zoning board and 1 of our planning board here in front of you. So as these come up and you have the ability to share those at the municipal level, it will become very important, I think, for multiple voices
Sure.
to be able to maintain that home rule at the municipal level.
All of them are in being drafted right now by the legislative services. So they're in LSR form. The finals are not done, but they're gradually starting to come out as finals. When they are, they're given a bill number, and I'm gotta believe Connor kind of keeps track of that stuff. And if you need to know which ones are really, really bad, actually I've got a list of about 46 we're looking at already that we've rated from really bad to neutral to whatever.
So I think it will become very important. There was presented material that would limit our ability as both employees and seated officials to share information with the public. And so this is one of those instances where there's a huge effect, especially on Barrington. I mean, we're in the middle of a drought, and while we're a water-rich community, we're all feeling the squeeze of what's happening with the lowered water tables. If we are not able to put out information as volunteer elected officials or staff, do we then have to pay our own lobbyists to get information out there to our residents? Do you understand my conundrum?
This is separate than obviously than the zoning and local control on zoning, but another important one, and it's been brought back this year relative to electioneering. This came out of, I think it was Goffstown Library that did the survey for the representatives that were running, and they felt that the survey questions were slanted one way. And so this electioneering bill, changing the definition of electioneering, failed in the most recent legislative session, but it's coming back. And I know you've seen our voter guide, which residents really love the access to the information that they get. And it's not only about select board members, but also about the town. And people want to be informed voters. And so electioneering is another, outside of local control, another issue that this select board has been very passionate about. And so if you're not familiar, we can talk about it more, about the efforts relative to the changing the definition of electioneering, but interested in your position on it as well.
Could I looked at what you sent me. That was one from Dannon. I'm prepared to speak to it. If I could, I would really like to just finish up on the zoning.
Perfect.
I'll tell you, there's nothing I've seen in my 10 years of being in the State House that is going to be more detrimental to towns. Barrington's a prime example than this zoning stuff.
Oh, we're aware, yes.
You have to get on board with it, or get with it. Another one that they had, and this one's going to come back, is they wanted the ability to put this will give you an idea of Now, I've got to be careful how I say this. There was a bill put in that spoke to manufactured housing, okay? Now, when you look in the RSAs, the way they write RSAs, they will say, for the purposes of this section, manufacturing housing means, okay? The Housing Committee, the Rubber Stamping Committee, passed it, 17-0, sent it over to the Senate. I was out, I've been going around the state speaking on the zoning. This is about my 10th one. I've got 2 more coming up shortly to kind of alert people on it. I was at one in Keene and I was talking about this bill, and one of the gentlemen sitting there goes, "Hey, Len, you know, I'm Representative Thaxton." He says, "I'm on that housing committee." And he says, this bill is about how manufactured housing. It's got nothing to do with mobile homes. I go, well, I said, let's read the definition of manufactured housing. And I read it to him, and he just sat there and went, because it speaks specifically to mobile homes. In this section, manufactured housing shall mean. He thought it meant prefab homes. No, trailers. And they wanted the ability to put a trailer onto any lot designated as single family. Now, pair that with the ADU bill. You could use a trailer as an ADU. You could end up with 2 trailers on a lot. I mean, the stuff that's going on. What's worse is I was in a little conversation with the chairman of this committee, Joe Alexander, and he was telling me, "Oh yeah, the bill's great, great." I go, "Well, Joe, you know this," and he goes, "You need to go back and read the bill." And I went, "Joe, you need to read the bill. This is about mobile home." So you had the chairman of the committee, and I bet you the majority of those 17 people who didn't even know what they were voting on, and they had passed a bill to put forth mobile home. We killed it. We were able to kill it. That one's coming back, or a version of it's coming back. The last one I'll talk about, and then we can talk about the other thing, is Keno. I saw it was on your agenda for later. So I want to give you the history of that. Up until last year, I'm sure you know, Keno was an opt-in. If a town wanted it, they'd put it on a warrant article, put it out to the vote, and see what would happen. Well, Connor was saying we've already turned it down 3 times, I guess, right? Well, the special interests want Keno everywhere. So what happened was this year when they did House Bill 2, I don't know if most of you are familiar with that, but House Bill 1 is the actual budget. HB 2 is what we call the trailer, not mobile home. Trailer, it trails HB 1, and that one talks about all the things that are in HB 1, allegedly. HB 2 this year was 176 pages and had over 80 different things crammed into it. Okay. One of the things they crammed into it from the House is they put in Keno. They changed the wording so that Keno would be allowed everywhere. Well, I caught it because I read every page of the HB 2. I caught it, and I put in a floor amendment to take that out of HB 2. Well, we succeeded in doing that by 6 votes. That's how divided it was. Most people didn't even know what the heck was going on, but we pulled it out. All right, so we're like, okay, we're back to the original. Well, what bill, 737, Connor, was it? Is that the one that's on the agenda? Something like that.
It was a 7.
All right, 737. So what the Senate did is they tacked on another thing that changed it to, it will now be, if a town wants to not have Keno, you have to opt out. So everybody's automatically opted in unless you want to opt out. That's not the way it should be done. We had passed a bill last year or last term about casinos, making it, if a town wants casinos, you got to opt in. So many things we do is you got to opt in. We don't say you're going to do, well, I could talk to something in town, but that's a whole nother town. That's totally unrelated. What we normally do is we opt in, not force a town out, run a warrant article to opt out again. So that's how that ended up there. And the whole thing here, believe it or not, revolved around a single senator who owns a pub over in Bedford, New Hampshire, who wants to put Keno in there, but the town has voted it down every time. So he had the influence to get it put in several times. And the last time I couldn't get it removed. So just a little bit of the inside baseball and the garbage that really goes on there, which is unfortunate. Okay, so you talking about was it 213?
That's the one that the governor vetoed, passed the
Correct.
House and Senate relative to electioneering. It was reintroduced as a non-germane amendment to House Bill 686.
686, that was retained. Is that something going on recently?
So on September 11th, there was
This year.
there was
Okay.
a non-germane amendment introduced that brought the 213 language back in.
Okay.
It's adjusted a little bit, and there was a hearing on it on September 16th.
I'm assuming they didn't take a vote on it.
No.
Okay. All right, so I went through 213 anyway, to refresh my memory, because like I was telling you, we have 800 to 1,000 bills every year, so to get brushed up on, I went back. I read it and I did not see the amount of worry that you guys expressed. I really didn't. Because it defines electioneer, what it means, and it says in a way designed to influence the vote of a voter. I used to do a lot of contract writing back in my Allied Pilots Association days when I was a negotiator. So little words can mean a lot of stuff. And when where was it again? Influence the vote of a voter on a question of office. And then it goes on to talk about the different things. The one that I saw in the original bill, Connor, that I kind of went, it could have been written a lot better. And that was in the original bill, Part 3C, where it talked about organizing or conducting surveys, forums, or events that are expressly or primarily political. To me, that one should have been written better, because it would almost, to me, take away the ability to have candidates come talk on that one. The other one that I flagged, but again, you read it and you got to read it for what it says. Distributing or displaying campaign materials for campaign during an officially declared election period in an unbiased manner. If it's in an unbiased, and I think honestly that one there, they screwed up the writing. It should have been written in the opposite. And that happens all the time, by the way. These bills get passed through, and a lot of them are half-assed. The bills that came out of my committee don't go half-assed because I make sure they're right. But that one, to me, is a little bit iffy. But honestly, reading through it, I just don't see, other than those, maybe fixing those minor things, I don't think it would prevent you from doing a voter guide, for instance. I don't believe it would do that.
So let me give you a for instance on that relative to electioneering. So I am of the opinion, and I believe the select board shares this opinion, the current electioneering statutes are unhelpfully vague. And so what that means,
Purposefully?
what that means is you have to operate in a gray zone. I'll give you a good example of how vague they are and how surprised municipal officials were at this decision. City of Nashua had a contentious issue in the city, and they have a public television channel. And so what they did is they took an alderman on either side of this issue, of this contentious issue, and did a spotlight, gave him a platform and said, tell your side of the story. Tell your side of the story. Separate programs, equal time, equal support, everything. And the city did this as an initiative to educate the people of Nashua about this contentious issue that was going on. 3 years later, the Attorney General's office came in and said that violates the electioneering statute as it exists right now. You can't do that. And so that shocked the municipal officials across the state because how is that influencing a decision? You're educating people, and here's their elected representatives, and you're giving them an opportunity to connect with their constituents, with the people in the town, not in a biased way, which the statute already talks about bias. Now, take that a step further. So we prepare a voter guide. There are attorneys, municipal and school district attorneys in this state who would look at our voter guide and say, you can't do that. Our own school district's attorney will not allow, this year, we were able to bring the school district warrant articles into our voter guide. The school board agreed, but the school district attorney advised the school board against providing any commentary from the school board. So the school board takes a vote whether or not to recommend an article and forbid, at his recommendation, the school board from providing any of that context to voters. And so a select board, the town voter guide for a select board, a town warrant article, when the budget committee votes 4-1 to recommend it, people see that and say, well, why do people like it? Why do people don't like it? And that information isn't available unless you provide it to them. And so we provide the context. The 4 members that supported this liked this, and that about it. The person who voted against it was concerned that it did this, and that. We do that for the select board. So that's the current landscape. The proposed.
Before you go on, please, hold on. So I see just for that last example you gave, I see a extremely, this is not my area of expertise, understand, but the select board recommends this article 4-1. You could easily, to me, get around that by just saying the select board voted 4-1. That way, it's not a recommendation. It's not.
Those are separate statutes. There's an existing statute that allows a community to vote to say whether or not recommendation votes are to be included on each warrant article. That's separate than electioneering, separate. So that, if that's locally adopted, which it has been in Barrington, the select board has to do that. The select board has to record a numerical tallied vote for whether or not something's recommended. So we have to do that by separate statutory authority that we can't change. That's how the residents voted. That's how the law still is, separate than electioneering. So we have to include on a warrant article, the select board recommends this 4-1. And what the challenge with the current electioneering statutes are, and the proposed legislation goes the wrong direction, is it retracts the authority, the ability to provide any context. And Barrington's actually a great example about this, because we don't have, as you know, in your political world, we don't have any third-party organization, news organization, that pays attention to Barrington on any regular basis. And so anything that we want the community to know about, we have to bring it to them. We have to meet them where they are, which is why we invest so much time and energy in packaging things up. Like Tracy's got a copy of the budget binder here. All 400 pages of that budget binder is available electronically today on the website. You can look at any one of those documents. We're at the very beginning of the process. We have to do things like that so we get information in front of our residents and make it available to them. Bringing electioneering backwards from even where we are now, I would like to see that we have the ability to provide unbiased information to the community about what their government is doing. People need to know. And we have set records in Barrington, voter turnout, because we empower voters to make informed decisions. They can show up, and when they've got a ballot with 40 questions on it, they have access to the information to make informed decisions on those. And so it's a dangerous thing. So this SB 213, the language of that made it a misdemeanor for any individual involved in preparing a voter guide or otherwise electioneering to electioneer. What a tremendous way to disincentivize any employed government official or elected government official to try to get information out to people. And so what you end up with is you create this shadow over government where people don't have access to information. They make things up and they fill the vacuum with speculation. And that's how you it disincentivize voters from voting because they don't have information about it. And so, no, I don't think anybody disagrees that it should be regulated, it should be unbiased. But moving the threshold in the wrong direction and attaching misdemeanor charges to trying to provide good government and trying to get information to people seems very, very counterintuitive to keeping government close to people and giving people access to that and being transparent about it.
Did the amendment they put on 686 take away the misdemeanor?
No.
That remains?
Yeah.
I'm going to bet that this probably goes nowhere. But
Well, the governor already vetoed it, which I think was important. It's too bad that it got to that point. But the example that they've used at the committee hearings and that the governor cited in her in her statement regarding the veto is you got a fire chief at a town meeting, right? There's a warrant article asking for money for a fire truck. You know, Chief Walker, every deliberative session, Chief Walker steps up to the microphone and he would say, hey, listen, we're asking for $100,000 for a fire truck. This is really important because a fire truck costs $1 million and we need to put money aside so we can have a fire truck when we need it. And this is part of an approved plan. And that activity would have been a misdemeanor under the 213, and the language is changing with this amendment. But the governor said a fire chief should be able to stand up in front of his constituents and explain why they're asking for money for a fire truck.
yeah, the way what you just said about Chief getting up and saying that to me is not an example of influencing a vote. It's educational. Would you agree?
I would agree.
Would you agree? Okay.
I would agree.
All right, good.
And it's valuable.
Okay, good. As would I. I'm just making sure we're on the same page.
Right.
The only thing I can tell you, again, this is not my area of expertise, is let me go back and see what's going on with it. My gut tells me it's probably going to go nowhere, but let me see.
Went through both, through the House and the Senate before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't mean anything. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's an important local issue, especially because a lot of parts of the state have news agencies that fill a very important role.
Yeah.
You know, the good and the bad. You know, you need somebody that shines a spotlight on what government is doing. And in Barrington, we have to shine the spotlight on ourselves.
Totally get it. For me, just so you know where I'm at, to me, the difference is between information and advocating. When you start advocating politically is where you start running, to me, where you get into the electioneering thing. Your example of the chief saying that's information.
Len, I'm going to interrupt you for a minute, just to use tonight as an example. You had very strong opinions on what was happening with a variety of zoning laws that are being presented. Is that educating or influencing? You had an opinion. I happen to agree with them, so I appreciate that you're sharing that and that we want to continue to have municipal home rule in our zoning. But even at that, if this was coming before the State House, as it likely is, you don't want a volunteer elected official's voice completely squelched when they're trying to explain what the outcome of a yay or nay vote could be. And so
Totally.
I hear what you're saying. Quite frankly, if I was not allowed to use my First Amendment rights as an individual, share what I think of a variety of issues, I would choose not to be an elected official so I could use my voice.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what we're going to run into.
Honestly, I don't think it's going to get to that.
I hope not,
To me,
but it could.
everything that I've been here tonight, I consider informational. I'm not trying to influence your vote in an town election or whatever.
Understood. I'm using it as an
Saying,
example, is that we're volunteer elected officials. Our job is to seek information from what the people
Right.
who voted us into office want. And then we move forward with that. If we're never able to discuss it outside of the 2 hours that we sit here every other week, that doesn't make sense. It makes no sense. I have people ask me, what do you think about the school board budget? Do we need X, Y, and Z? And I'll say, well, That's entirely up to you. I happen to track the following data sets. That's where I get my information from. That's not trying to influence a vote. That's sharing as an individual how I'm
Totally agree.
approaching something.
I had a guy, I don't know how many of you knew, but I ran for the Speaker of the House this past term just because I'm so upset with the direction of my own party and the leadership of what they're doing, because they're pushing a lot of this garbage. And in the process, I spoke to just about all the new people coming in, and there was one gentleman, he was wound around, we call it wound around the axle. I don't know if you understand what that means, but he's like a Tasmanian devil spinning, because he was convinced no matter what he voted on, somehow he would violate the ethics and the conflict of interest rule. And I kept telling him, look, you're not going to do this. But I couldn't convince him otherwise. And he's been fine. He's a great guy and whatever. I don't want to say I see this to that level, but I really don't believe anything that's been going on. Has any of the stuff that's gone on in the past been challenged by the AG? Has there, and even if it's been
National was the
challenged,
first example, and the determination came in the seemingly most backwards way for access to information, and that's what has people so worried, because there were no consequences in Nashua. The AG did a little wrist slap, a misdemeanor with $1,000 civil penalty for being on the wrong side of somebody at the Attorney General's office, being the one who decides, is that a biased opinion? Is that electioneering?
my
dangerous.
point is I got to be careful. The AG's office is very, in my opinion, they allow a lot of stuff to go on without repercussion. Okay.
Why vote it in? Why even have it? Why have this electioneer? Why support it?
I'm not,
Okay.
yeah.
There, that's, I guess
Yeah,
as a select board,
I-
that's what we're
I'm just
asking
trying to
today.
understand,
Yeah.
what's, because it isn't my area of expertise. It really isn't. But
But with some
The-
experience
my-
and the ability to communicate with others,
Yeah.
you can now share 4 or 5 different instances.
my point on the AG's office of, they give out a lot of opinions. There are never ever any repercussions. We have, no, I don't want to get into it.
Madam Chair, may I?
Campaign finance
Yes.
issues.
So the crux of it is not that the AG's office may, and I'm coming at this from I'm an attorney, is not whether or not there's going to be a punishment in the end, but it's actually going to prevent the activity from happening out of an abundance of caution, because towns cannot afford any lawsuits related to this. So if it passes, we're simply going to stop putting that information out there for fear of a lawsuit, because we can't afford to go through a lawsuit. And right now we're tightening our belts more than ever. So it's just going to never get to the point of the AG's office having anything to do with it. We're just going to stop. And the information that we put out, which is unbiased and high quality, is what drives voter turnout in this town to be fantastic. So by extension, we're going to become more conservative in the way that we share information, and then we're going to discourage by extension our voters from participating. That's the practical impact.
People from running from office, if I could add that. That's the most, Yeah.
I've
Something-
said it,
yes.
I don't think it's,
Yeah, we're beating
I
a
don't think
dead
it's going
horse,
to
I
be an
understand.
issue, because I think it'll either get voted down or the governor will veto again. Remember, the governor appoints the AG. The AG's going to be behind her saying, no, you can't go there because of X or whatever.
One can hope, yes.
What's that?
I said one can hope that's the case, yes.
Just based on what I've seen over my 10 years up there, that's my inkling. No
Understood.
promises. I can't promise you anything,
Good.
but
But if the topic comes up and
Yeah.
you need any practical examples
Sure.
or even a copy of the voter guide, please reach out. It's an
Absolutely.
important
Yes.
issue to us.
It's important to us, very, yeah. We've got to wrap a little bit because we're only halfway through our agenda, but what other key things would you like to share with us?
that was,
Questions?
that was mainly, I really wanted you all to know what was going on in the zoning. Because
where-
again,
yes.
I'll say it again, it's the most potential dangerous thing I've seen in 10 years. It's insidious because they're chipping a little bit every year.
Mhm.
Parking spaces is another good one. They used to be, you had to have 2 parking spaces.
Now it's
Last
1.
year, they
Yep.
went to 1.5. This year, they went to 1.0.
1,
What's
yeah.
next year? Oh, you know what they actually have gone to in some situations? You don't even have to have any parking spaces for a development as long as a developer can provide spaces some off-site.
Mhm. Yep.
So they keep, I mean, that's an easy example to see how they're chipping. Some of these other ones they're much more involved and detailed, but that's what's happening. They're chipping away, you know, and it comes down to, again, I'll say that the overriding issue is a forced state mandate versus local decision-making on zoning. They gave you the ability to do the zoning 100 years ago in whatever the RSA was. I pulled it up. I got so much paperwork here, I can't find it. You're supposed to do it.
Yep.
Now because they want to help their ideologues and their special interests, they're going, oh, well, let's do this. Let's do this for the housing builders, the Builders Association. Let's do this and this and this. So
Yep.
that was my big thing to
Yeah,
talk with
we
you about tonight.
Definitely are aware of it and following it. So thank you for that.
Questions from board members?
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Yes, please.
Very, very quickly. So this is, I believe, the first time that we've seen you here to liaise with us this year. What is the best way to send feedback? Do you read the public commentary that's submitted from residents of Barrington and Stratford when bills are going through the
You
process?
can, I'm sure Connor's got all my contact information. I'll give you my phone number. You can contact me anytime. The number of times I get calls from actual Barrington citizens or emails from Barrington citizens, it's almost non-existent. You'd be surprised how little people call. You know, when there's a big issue going on, we get I don't know what you call them, form emails that, you know, all of a sudden I'll get 1,000 of them coming in. I just delete because they're all the same and most of them aren't from Barrington or Stratford. But my phone number is, you want it?
Or it would be recorded. I can get it from you.
It's all
Later.
public information
Okay,
out there anyway.
sure.
603-969-1026. That's my cell phone. My email that I check all the time is my name, Len, Len, last name TURCOTTE @metrocast.net, not com.net.
Because
This would be different than what's on the public.
Say again?
This would be different email than what's on the public state website.
I do have a New
But
Hampshire legislative email. You can pull
monitor
that one.
as well.
The only thing with that, and Connor's found out, and that's why I missed the last meeting that he thought I was coming to. I ended up flying, so there was a little miscommunication. I don't check that one very much.
Okay, good to
The
know.
one I gave you, I check all the time.
Okay.
You can send it to the other one, but if I check that every 3 or 4 days, you know, I'm lucky. The other one I check several times a day, so.
Okay.
thank you so much
Thank you for
doing
being
that.
here and being available.
Anytime.
Very appreciated.
I tell people, you know, they go, don't you go to all the Barrington meetings and do this? And I go, I don't, because I'm your representative to the State House. I kind of try to stay out of the local issues as much as possible unless you want me to be involved. I do the State House stuff, and if you want me to hear, Connor's found that out when he's had issues with water and.
There's a fun one this year. The Representative Turncott has sponsored an article or a bill for the middle school, and Jeff Durrell.
Oh, right.
There's no federal election this year, so the civics teacher in the middle school is looking for a project that could shine a spotlight on civics for kids.
Forgot about that one.
Do you want to?
Absolutely.
Please.
Yeah, so what they did, he contacted me and said, hey, there's a peak up in Grafton County that has no name to it.
Aw.
And we'd like to name it after Alan Shepard, first astronaut actually in space. And I'll tell you, in the past, every term, almost every year, we have a second or third grade class that comes and puts in a bill to make the aardvark the official marsupial of New Hampshire, or the official arachnid, you know. And I told Jeff when he first called, I said, if you're going to do something of substance. That's nothing. Do something where your kids actually have to do research and whatever. So they did the research. They got the location of it down to, you know, perfection. We drafted the bill, and the only I haven't talked with him in a couple of weeks, but the one issue we run into, he's trying to track down Alan Shepard's sisters, because I put as co-sponsors all the people from Derry where he lived, the senators from that area, and then up in Grafton. So I got everybody on it, and I had one of the senators go, hey, just so you know, Alan Shepard has said in the past that he doesn't want things named after him. And I'm like, oh, crap. You know, the bill was already it's already being drafted and the whole thing. So I let Jeff know. I said, you better find out. I don't, this is your bill. You're going to be doing all the work on this. I'm going to sponsor it. But he goes, I'm going to try to find the sisters and find out. So that was the last I heard. But yeah, it is kind of a cool bill. It's actually something that took a little bit of work, a little bit of thought, research. So.
And even if it dies on the vine, the kids have got to go through the process and see the importance of research. So great exercise. He's an awesome teacher. He was a finalist for Teacher of the Year 2 years ago.
Oh, was it?
Great guy.
Well, I told him, I said, what's going to happen on the day that the bill goes before the committee? We're going to go up. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to go, Representative Len Turcotte introducing this bill to name blah, blah, blah. And here's hopefully he'll have some kids actually do it. I said, you're doing this.
It's awesome.
I said, I'll be there to guide you, but.
Love it.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
all right,
Appreciate
you're
your
welcome.
time.
I think we already approved the consent agenda
We
under
did.
agenda review.
We did. So we are moving on to no other appointments.
No
so
appointments?
You're on, sir.
Staff report, October work anniversaries. We have 2 employees that were hired in October. Historically, Sam Sorosky has been a police officer for 6 years now. He's now our canine officer, you may remember, a terrific member of the team. Leah Prue was hired as the first ever fire EMS administrative assistant this time last year. 2026 budget development, you all now have copies of your physical budget binders. Fortunately, thanks to our terrific municipal office administrator, every document in the entire budget binder is at the same time available online at barrington.nh.gov/2026 budget. And I'll be honest with you, even me, myself, I have a physical budget binder. Anytime I'm looking something up that's in the budget, I go to the online resource. The table of contents is all links. You go down, the entire list for each chapter is a link. You click on it, it's open. And so that's a terrific resource for anybody that is looking for details about the budget. There are a couple of improvements to the budget binder this year. First, the budget narrative for each chapter is all standardized format. So now, and even in chapter 1, the entire narrative is listed with the budget. So you can scroll through and identify any budget line in the entire budget and read the description of what it's used for, what's unique about the budget proposal this year. There's also a chapter on our revolving funds, which hasn't been in the budget binder previously. So that provides some insight into how the recreation revolving fund and the ambulance revolving fund and our new transfer station revolving fund meshes with the general operating budget that we have, because they're very valuable tools that help us defer a lot of operating costs from the operating budget through these other revenue sources, but it's still a critical part of our municipal operations. There are other improvements in there also. Each chapter starts with a summary and a cover letter from department heads, and so it's meant to be user-friendly, not just for folks like the Budget Committee and Select Board that dive into the weeds, but also for the general public interested in learning about the $10 million budget that their municipal government operates on. So budget committee meetings start on October 15th. There'll be an initial budget presentation followed by weekly meetings. The select board will hear that same initial budget presentation at the October 20th meeting to kick off the process and give you some exposure to what the budget looks like from the beginning. budget committee meetings are available for virtual participation and will also be recorded again this year and available on the town's YouTube channel. Any questions about 2026 budget development process?
Anything in here at all about TIP?
There are some details in the MS1 that show like the amount retained for the assessed value and those details.
Okay.
Other questions about the budget? Okay, terrific. Moving on, Town Center Day was a phenomenal success. So we had 75 people sit through the 2-hour morning presentation, which was awesome. We received a lot of very positive feedback, not just about the details we talked about, but about the opportunity to get together and hear about the work we've been doing and hear from, we had a developer there talking about, how that side of the equation approaches investing in a community and what things they look at and look for. And we had the consultant team and UNH Cooperative Extension. So that session was recorded. We're still working on getting the recording from the outfit that we had recorded. We wish there wasn't as much of a delay, but electronic means of delivering the file have failed us. So we're going back to the physical. Here's a USB with the video file on it. So we will get it up on YouTube as soon as possible. And once we have that recording available, we'll do a blast out to the community on the website and social media, recapping the day and providing that link to more information so people can see that. We had the Gather on the Common. There were hundreds of people, tons of families, other people wandering through, providing great feedback. And so we have all been hard at work since then, since September 21st, digesting and aggregating all this information. I brought with me a document that the consultant team put together, the master plan implementation consultant team put together, that the planner will be presenting to the planning board tomorrow. And this is essentially a summary of their portion of Town Center Day and approaching regulations for Town Center Day. So I'll leave you with that. Joyce, you'll see and hear more about that tomorrow. But there's a lot more work going on behind the scenes. Cooperative Extension is finalizing their report, so we expect to see that soon. And the Town Center Day, it was a perfect example of what makes Barrington so special, because there were so many people involved, from staff and volunteers, our consultant team, that all came together to make the day happen. It was flawless, beautiful weather helped a lot. But thank you to select board members for being there and supporting the event, but everybody else that helped make Town Center Day special. So this will allow us to really refine that town center vision, make sure we're headed in the right direction, look at regulatory changes and other things we need to do to achieve that town center vision. Questions, comments about Town Center Day? Awesome.
Excellent. Well.
Seacoast Shipyard Association data. So I love that they do this. They publish the impact of the shipyard in the states of Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. And so Barrington has held its position as the largest town employer at the shipyard. The 4 cities have more employees at the shipyard than Barrington, but we have 170 residents that are employees at the shipyard that bring back $16.2 million in payroll. So these numbers have continued to climb over the years. I've got the historical data in there. Just interesting fun fact. Madbury, Lee, and Barrington Fire Collaboration Working Group. The group continues to meet. We'll meet again this coming Wednesday. The 10th and 14th, the 24th. So the group decided at the most recent meeting that for consistency of messaging, they wanted to not advertise the minutes until they were approved.
Okay.
So they can be requested, because after 5 business days, you have to have minutes available. But they didn't want the minutes. They wanted the group to have an opportunity to approve the minutes. The 10th.
I fixed it.
The 10th link has been fixed. And so that's why you'll see the approved minutes there on that. We are still charging full steam ahead for an update at a November 10th joint meeting of Barrington, Lee, and Madbury, so we'll get details of that coming. I will give you a heads up now that it is likely that at that joint meeting, I will ask the select board for a vote on awarding the Lakeside Oaks and Swains Dam scope to a qualified contractor. So the timing works best there. We'll be advertising that scope probably in the next day or two.
Repeat those, Lakeside.
The Lakeside Oaks and Swains Dam, that project we combined. So it's
So
really
it has
three
nothing to do
projects.
with it being a joint meeting?
It has nothing to do with that. It's the fact that the select board will all be together and the timing makes sense. So this,
Okay.
it will be a pretty procedural decision from the select board. There'll be a recommendation prepared by the town's attorney reviewing the submitted proposals. It will, I can't imagine that the recommendation won't be the low bid, which, you know, makes, it's just a procedural, we've got to award the project and keep it moving, but the timing's good on that. So I would normally try to avoid something like that, but opposed to adding another meeting, a reason to get together.
Do you want us there 5 minutes early, or just remember to stay 5 minutes after it?
I'll let you know.
Okay.
Do you have a preference?
I don't.
Where are we meeting, Madbury?
I think we'll meet in Madbury again. I think that's a good idea. But those details haven't been finalized yet.
Okay.
We'll talk about that with the committee.
I won't be able to attend.
Okay. Septic Ordinance Advisory Group. So you know we got a $20,000 grant from Piscataway Region Estuaries Partnership to review a proposal for a septic ordinance around our shoreland. There's some other parts of that scope also relative to lake and waterway health. So the Stratford Regional Planning Commission is the consultant hired to lead the project, and they have recommended a septic ordinance advisory group to help lead this project. The proposal will, if the proposal results in a warrant article, that will be a warrant article in 2027. So this will be about a 1.5 assignment, maybe a little bit more, to go to March of 2027. And so there is a request to have a select board liaison on the septic ordinance advisory group. Certainly not required, but I wanted to bring it before the select board for your consideration.
I have some quick questions on
Yes.
this. I'm quite certain there are water-rich communities that already have shorefront septic ordinances.
Yes, correct,
And that this group would likely be pulling from those as examples.
correct.
Are they going to be presented with a data set that shows the housing or lots that exist around our waterfronts and how many of them have various types of systems?
We have that?
I don't.
That's, I guess,
So
what I'm getting
I would
at.
imagine, I would expect, I should say, that the value of having a consultant team like Stratford Regional Planning is that once this advisory group is formed and has requests such as, I'd like to see an aggregation of the data of approved septic systems around our waterways to help understand the impact of a proposed ordinance. That's the type of research and data collection that they would do over the next 1.5 to advise decision-making on a proposed warrant article. So that work hasn't been done, but I expect that work will be done as part of the process and other data that the group will want.
Yeah, I'm hoping that that is part of what is done, because I think it will help
But when I looked at this,
guide
when
the
it
actual
first came
proposal.
up, there were
Yeah.
6 communities that we could easily find that had adopted septic. Some of them had penalties and some it was educational.
Okay. Any chance you want to sit on this group?
I'm
Joy, she
sort of
doesn't
thinking
want
of it,
one
then
more.
you said a year
I'm
and a
like,
half. I don't know. But I'll throw my hat in.
Okay. And there certainly doesn't have to be a select board liaison. I think the important part is that we are all going along for the ride, that we are staying apprised to the work that's being done. And if there are things that as a select board, the select board feels it would be important to have this information collected, aggregated, summarized, available to the public for when they consider a septic ordinance at town meeting vote, then that's the feedback loop that I think we want to maintain. So certainly consider it if it fits and your schedule allows for it, that's terrific. But if it needs to be a more intermittent thing and maybe you could get updates at the planning board and bring that back on a regular basis, I think that would be acceptable as well. Training opportunities, land use conference was 2 days ago. What is the one big beautiful act? Bill Act is on the 8th, which is in 2 days. The do's and don'ts of development on Class 6 roads, there's a webinar on that on the 15th. There were some legislative changes as they relate to development on Class 6 and private roads, and I'm sure they will be covering that if you're interested. And the Municipal Association Conference is November 19th and 20th in Manchester. And we have an action item on that in a minute about a voting delegate, but that's all I have.
Okay, who are we reaching out to if we want to sign up?
Tiffany,
Okay, Tiffany it is.
absolutely.
Okay. You're on.
I have nothing.
Thank
No
you for
requests.
having nothing at 7:45 at night. Okay, and old business.
So Keno, I confirmed the procedure for Keno. We'll put a warrant article, so I'm looking for a vote to have the select board sponsor a warrant article relative to Keno. Separately, I did more research relative to games of chance. You remember there was a question about, does a charity bingo apply as a game of chance? And so there's two distinctions. The law allows municipalities to prohibit the issuance of new licenses for games of chance, which that is poker, slots, table games, bingo, etc., at a facility or a game room. And so that's the kind of most impactful decision that town meeting could make to prohibit those licenses. So she mentioned, the woman I talked to, that there's a moratorium on the issuance of licenses for historic horse racing and slot machines through 2031 anyways. And so, this wouldn't dramatically change the course of history, but it might be a good proactive thing for the community to be able to consider.
Quick question, Connor. If we bring before the residents of Barrington the opt-out of Keno, which would be the only way to stop it, and they voted 3 times against it historically. If we were to bring that forward, do we no longer receive funding for kindergarten? Because originally,
No.
is there any impact on funding is the
No.
question I'm asking.
No.
Okay. So,
As I shared at the last meeting, the impact to funding are the fewer Keno games there are played, the less amount of funding goes into the pool that's split among all communities. Barrington as a community doesn't forfeit their share of Keno revenue
excellent.
by not participating in Keno games. So I can't say that there won't be an impact if Barrington doesn't allow Keno, because that might put more money into the kitty, but it doesn't change the calculation for our distribution.
So,
Play somewhere else.
yeah, discussions on this. I personally feel that it has to be brought forward to the residents. It is not up to this board to decide, but do the rest of you have opinions on that?
I agree, but the only thing we're going to put on I think the article, the warrant should say, prohibit or opt out of Keno. That's the choice.
So the select board already voted to sponsor that article.
Mm-hmm.
The separate article relative to games of chance is the one that we wanted more research on, and that was because of the potential for bingo. So the authority that we have is to limit the issuance of licenses. There is separately an opportunity with the Gaming Commission for gaming events. So if a church wanted to have a bingo charity event, they could apply for a gaming event license.
Right.
And what the woman explained to me is all of the same criteria as a game room applies to gaming events. And so they generally don't have any applications. And when they do, they don't follow through because these charity organizations just partner with a game room and host their event there.
Okay.
So it doesn't seem like there's any negative impact to organizations in Barrington by limiting the licensing of charitable gaming in Barrington.
So based on what you're saying, we would bring to the voters, do you wish to opt in to the prohibition of the issuance of new licenses for games of
There's
chance?
proposed language for the warrant article already. We don't even have to come up with the
Okay.
language. The question before voters is whether to prohibit the issuance of licenses for gaming events in Barrington.
Okay, so that will be brought forward and they'll make their decision.
Does the select board want to vote to place that article on the warrant?
The
No, Keno's already on the warrant relative to licensing.
Gaming establishments.
that
Okay.
we sponsor a warrant article asking residents if they want to prohibit games of chance.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay, roll call, please.
Demaco, aye.
Happy yellow eye.
Nine-track eye.
And Hardikoff, aye, motion carries. Moving on.
It's all of old business.
Something in my eye. Okay. New business.
Municipal solid waste recycling request for proposals.
Now let's discuss trash.
Let's talk trash.
Yeah.
So this is a long time in the making, this approach. I provided the history in my town administrator report. I won't go into all the history now, but anybody with interest in the topic, please review that history. So where we are now is March 2026 is the last town meeting before our contract with Waste Management expires. We have set ourselves up very well to have good options for the expiration of that contract. Kudos to us for planning ahead and preparing for the unknown. It's possible that the next best, or the best solution for Barrington following the expiration of that contract is another long-term contract with Waste Management or another outfit. And so if that is the best option, we need to go through a process to solicit proposals, and we would need to prepare a warrant article, as we did 8 years ago, to bring that before voters and make that decision. And again, March 2026 is the last town meeting before the end of that contract. That is not our only option. We have other options for a continuing service after December 31st, 2026. And so this process may not result in a warrant article if that isn't the best option for Barrington. And so this is a fact-finding mission. If it's determined that the best thing for Barrington to do is to enter a long-term contract, it gives us the ability to put that on the warrant in a timely fashion and in an organized and thoughtful way. Because we're advertising requests for proposals, it also gives us an opportunity to cast a wide net and explore waste management from a very 50,000 foot level for Barrington. This select board, every select board I've worked for, has never felt that curbside trash pickup is something our community needed. And the cost is the primary reason for that. We have a $10 million budget. 15 years ago, the cost for curbside pickup was $1 million. It's got to be north of $2 million now, if not more. And we're not going to probably increase our budget 20% to have curbside trash pickup in Barrington. Right. But it is something that our community has members of our community regularly inquire about. Why don't we do trash pickup? What would it look like? What would the implications be of private roads versus public roads? And so because we're advertising requests for proposals anyways, we see this as an opportunity, and the Transfer Station Recycling Center Review Committee recommends that we ask qualified contractors to submit a proposal for a suite of services. What would it take to just transport trash from the transfer station to Waste Management in Rochester? What would it take to pick up curbside pickup for all of our public roads? What would it take to pick up curbside pickup from all of our roads in Barrington? And there's a couple of other options in there listed in the RFP, which you all have a copy of. And so it's a fact-finding mission. We make it clear in the RFP that we are collecting information to make informed decisions, and the decision that Barrington will make will be what's best for the community. But we'll do that with all of the information on the table. And should we choose that curbside pickup, for example, isn't right for the community, we'll be able to explain and point to data and show residents that the reason curbside pickup isn't right for Barrington is because it would increase our budget 20%, and other services are more important to us at this time. So the request to the select board is to authorize advertising the request for proposals, and we'll bring back a summary of those results at the December 1st select board meeting. Again, in time, if staff recommends a long-term contract with an entity, that gives us time to prepare that warrant article and get it on the warrant.
So I move that we authorize the advertisement of an RFP for waste recycling in Barrington. Explore options following upcoming expiration of waste management agreement.
Roll call, please.
Demaco, aye.
Happy yellow eye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Terrific, thank you. And a lot of hard work went into that. Our transfer station administrator and highway support assistant put in a tremendous amount of work, and she was supported closely by our public works director in getting that prepared and ready to advertise. So thank you to them. Ready to move on to senior care services, exploration of opportunities?
Yes.
Terrific. So the select board in the past has identified as a priority and a strategic priority to explore both childcare and elder care options and services for Barrington. And it's one of those strategic priorities which is not as tangible for the municipal government to affect change on. For childcare, we participated in the Barrington Child Care Collaborative. I attended a couple of conferences, and we have helped support that group, but it's hard to measure the impact of that change. Relative to senior care, until recently, there weren't really a lot of opportunities, or there weren't a lot of apparent opportunities for the town to involve itself. And so now that we are gaining momentum in the town center, and we consistently hear from our residents that having an opportunity to age in place and having an opportunity for senior care services in Barrington for Barrington residents that don't wish to leave the community, it seems like an appropriate time to revisit this topic. There are opportunities that exist. There are nonprofit organizations that exist, and that there are investments and pathways that have been prepared to help facilitate a community getting involved in supporting elder care and senior care services in a community. Our residents voted at recent town meeting to amend the zoning ordinance as it relates to nursing facilities and senior care facilities. And that support seemed indicative of residents wanting to see something like that happen in Barrington. So there's a specific opportunity, a nonprofit that exists in Massachusetts that's looking to expand and continue to develop their facilities to provide services. And so it might be a good opportunity to start and put a portfolio together for Barrington, what we have, what our demographics look like, and invite this nonprofit or any other to do a feasibility study for Barrington. What would it look like to serve in this market? And if there's an opportunity there, that would give us the chance to connect them with landowners or developers that are working to develop land in Barrington, maybe in the greater town center area or otherwise where there are applicable services. So before heading too deep down that path, I felt like it was appropriate to check in with the select board and see how folks felt about spending time and effort on that initiative.
Yeah, I think it's worth exploring. I've definitely heard feedback from residents about, feeling like this is somewhere they can only be until a certain point in their lives. And I support exploring other options to allow people to age in place.
I think for me, one of the more important things in all of this is going to take us down into the micro, not the macro. There's a statement here, many lifelong Barrington residents are forced to leave Barrington as they age due to lack of housing or care options, definitely care options. And I also think that probably the transfer of housing is impacted by a lot of our seniors not having other places to reside and age in place. What would be most important to me is to look at that demographic data so that we could see at what age are we losing residents, how many residents are we losing annually as they age, how many of them have turned over homes to potentially younger families. One of the other things I think is extremely important in these discussions, our job is to focus on Barringtonites, and oftentimes when senior housing is created, we attract people from all over the state the minute the senior housing opens up. And I think what our job really is in this is to figure out how you invest in senior housing, senior care services, and figure out how it is we allow maybe 50% of those rooms or 50% of the beds be specific to Barringtonites. And otherwise, what we are doing is certainly helping the state, but not helping our Barrington residents age in place. That's my only take on that.
Definitely something to keep in the conversation. this came up for me because I attended an event in Boston with this organization called Rogerson. They've been around for 160 years, and they've been doing elderly housing in a range of things, sometimes like aging in place, across like a river woods, and sometimes just very small, 17 units, sometimes memory units, sometimes daycare for elders. And it just seemed like, well, we should have a conversation. They've mostly been in the 495 corridor around Boston. My son-in-law is on the board, and he said construction costs are just really high, and so it's a reason for them to be thinking broader in terms of geographic.
Yeah. And I personally love the idea of assisted living condo apartments where people retain their wealth or the equity in their housing until they are ready for more skilled care, so that they can make choices of where they may land for that skilled care. That is uber important to me.
I was going to say, you may remember that one of the original discussions of that 13 acres was to have, to include senior care. And they opted out, I think financially they opted out of that.
Yeah,
Yeah, they, in their estimation, the density of units that they needed to be financially feasible required relief from the zoning board, which the zoning board, the hardship really wasn't there because there were other options to develop the property. Since then, the zoning has changed, and there are some specific zoning relative to density for care facilities, which may have been helpful in that case, but it will be helpful for opportunities in the future. And so, yeah, so it seems like through head nods, there's a consensus that working on this and, kind of promoting Barrington as an opportunity to consider this. One of the things that Select Person Cappiello heard at the event is that a lot of times there is local opposition through zoning or local approvals to even the type of services that the community may want, or the members of the community may want. And so before, heading down this path, I think we felt it was important that the select board have an opportunity to say, hey, these are the issues, as the chair has pointed out. Let's make sure that these stay part of the conversation all the way through so it doesn't go sideways partway down. But we'll do some work there and check back in with the select board.
Right. And it may just be pie in the sky, but I think it at least sharpens our thinking a little bit. And
I think the data will really point us in some important directions too. I think, from the regional EMS and fire collaborative group too, you have Madbury, which is a smaller population, smaller land-wise, but they actually have a rather robust assisted living facility that they're responding to. And I think that's another area.
Riverwoods in Durham.
No, Madbury. I think that's another area of study, as well as the potential financial impact of their paramedics and EMS by having the facility. These are all things that are available and can be studied, and I think it's super important.
Terrific. Thank you. Capital Improvements Program Committee. So the planning board by default in the statute is the Capital Improvements Plan or Program Committee. And our planning board has done a terrific job over the years balancing the workload of the CIP with the applications coming before the planning board. We have also, staff have been making a lot of progress in improving the CIP, making it more comprehensive, letting it be an actual plan that we refer to on a regular basis and guide municipal decision-making. And so simultaneously, the workload of the planning board has continued to seemingly increase as development pressure comes down. And so our new planner has had positive experience in other communities having a separate CIP committee that's focused on this. And you remember, we actually talked about this last year relative to the Advisory Budget Committee. The Advisory Budget Committee, certain members felt like involving the budget committee on this capital planning process felt appropriate.
Huge, yeah.
And so to make it official, the voters would have to authorize the select board to establish a CIP committee and appoint the membership. It's a largely procedural vote because it just defers the authority of the select board. It's not just the planning board. who are also appointed by the select board, but it gives the select board that authority. So don't have to make a decision tonight, but if we wanted to do that, if we wanted to head in that direction, which it seems like there's broad support for, then we would be looking at a warrant article on the March ballot, asking the voters to authorize the select board to have a CIP committee. There's some other details in the TA report. Thoughts about that? Other things we want to consider before making a decision?
So this would need to go to planning board as well. I didn't see it on the agenda for it, but maybe at our work meeting.
I think the plan is at the work session to talk about that. So the town planner's working on the CIP right now. We're looking at scheduling. You remember last year we had a joint meeting of the planning board and select board to adopt the CIP and the funding plan. So we're looking at doing that again, maybe sometime in the end of November. And so I think I wanted to bring it before the select board, so if there's any research or things we wanted to consider before taking the topic further, we could do that. But I think we'll have an opportunity at a joint meeting with the planning board to discuss and maybe finalize a plan for that also.
So I think that, the only thing that occurs to me, you've got 3 of 5 seated select board members that already serve on land use committees. And I'm not sure how you see the breakdown in number of select board members, advisory budget committee members, and planning board members participating. But I also...
Well, that would be up to the select board. The
Okay.
statute requires participation from a planning board member. That's
Okay.
the only statutory requirement.
Okay.
And honestly, I would recommend that the select board simply consider appointing the budget committee as the CIP committee with a planning board member. And the work of the budget committee from, say, April to September is capital improvements. And from September, October through March, the budget. And obviously there would be overlap and meetings wouldn't necessarily have to be through that entire time frame. But we had already talked about, and we actually have a strategic priority goal, a strategic plan goal of involving the budget committee in our capital planning. And so it seems like a natural trajectory. Now, I don't think it would be appropriate for the select board to decide now that, hey, if this happens, we're going to just directly appoint the budget committee members. We could open it up. We could invite new membership. But I think merging those processes is something we have talked about. So, but we don't have to decide that now. And certainly it would be up to the select board. And any future select board could change how the makeup of that committee.
Joyce, do you have, I guess I'm looking to you to give like some really strong feedback on this.
So the planning board talked a little bit about CIP, and my sense of that is they felt sometimes not having a strong background in how to make all the various decisions.
Okay.
So they were just looking for, I think, some support to strengthen that process for them.
Okay. Okay.
So there seems like there's an openness to it.
Yeah, first of all, I appreciate the planning board's dedication. I would never want to offend them in any way, but I do feel like the CIP leans much more towards advisory budget committee exploration than sometimes planning. But then I think to myself,
when we actually have a plan to present, we'll have to see what their reaction is.
Okay.
And in the past, the planning board has felt the feedback we have received, some feedback we have received during prior CIP approvals of the planning board. Why are we here? Why is it the planning board that is trying to sequence projects, capital projects, and the funding for those capital projects at the same time that we're looking at development? Now, practically in the statute, I think the legislative intent was that the planning board, in reviewing development proposals, needs to consider scattered and premature development as part of what they do. And the municipal capital needs are a big part of scattered and premature development. Truth be told, that isn't a regular consideration of the planning board, given the development of Barrington right now and the level of service that we provide. It may be with the application with 178 units. The scale of that project is certainly bigger than we typically see. And so, that may come into play more than it has in the past. But I think that's the legislative intent of the planning board by default. But the statutes obviously make it clear that there are other ways to do it, and this is how we would transition.
Understood. Any feedback, Dan, or? No.
I trust the town planner. I worked with him.
Mm-hmm.
On a, he's fantastic,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a well.
Okay.
At least willing to listen.
Good. We'll continue working that direction and plan to try to finalize something maybe at a joint meeting when we approve the 2026 to 2036 CIP.
And before you speak on the next issue, have we, for the past 6 years, appointed you as the voting delegate?
No.
No,
It was Jim last year.
it was Jim last
I think
year.
it was Joyce or Dan in the year before.
Okay.
Chair.
Okay.
I'm certainly willing to be. I will be there, and so. But if there is any select board member there, I think it's great to have a select board member be that voting delegate. If the select board member is attending,
And does it happen on the
be
first day,
there.
the 19th?
it's on the 19th at 8:45.
I will be there. I don't
Okay.
know. I've taken those 2 days off work and plan to attend the entire conference.
Okay. So I would then make a motion to appoint Alexandra Smalko as the voting delegate member at the NHMA annual meeting. And I have a second from Dan and roll call vote.
Samako, I.
BLOI.
Max Shrek, aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Guess I
Terrific.
held those 2 days.
There you have it.
That was hard.
Yep.
Good job.
Christmas Eve.
So the town is generous in approving 12 paid holidays for employees. And we set that holiday schedule typically in July for the upcoming year. So, when we're talking about Christmas and New Year's holidays, we're talking about setting that schedule a year and a half in advance. And so there is, in 2025, there is a Christmas holiday, which is a Thursday, and there is a Christmas floating holiday, which is one of our 12 approved holidays, which is the Friday, the day after Christmas. And so the town hall hours for tax and town clerk on Wednesdays is 1 to 6. And so the town hall would be open until 6 on that Wednesday of Christmas Eve. And the town clerk has asked the select board to consider authorizing her office to be open for the first half of the day instead of the second half of the day, and essentially closing the town hall at 1 on Christmas Eve instead of 6.
And what would be the plan for advertising this to Barrington residents? Would you be putting information in with the tax bill so that they know that there's a change in those hours?
If the select board supported doing this, then I think it would be very important to make clear to residents any change in schedule. As you know, I've advocated consistently that one of the things that's very important to me is that we maintain a consistent schedule for residents. We're a customer service organization, and when we say that we're going to be there, we should be there and be open to them. Now, certainly there are times, the day before Thanksgiving is a good example, Christmas Eve when we're open is a good example, when we have less foot traffic than other days. But for those residents that are looking for services on those days, and we're typically open on those days for certain hours, I think it's important that we're available to the public. And so I think a consistent schedule is important. If the select board is interested in making any changes to the schedule, absolutely, it would need to be widely publicized.
I think the most important thing would be for us to ask what occurred in prior years for hours on did only 5 residents show up during those 5 hours on Christmas Eve?
So I don't know. I don't have that data. I can tell you confidently that Christmas Eve and the day before Thanksgiving are generally slow days at the town hall. I don't know that that should be the only metric that the select board considers in making that decision, because again, there are 12 approved holidays that we already have a holiday for the day after Thanksgiving. We already have a floating holiday for Christmas. Sometimes that floating holiday is the day before Christmas. Sometimes it's the day after. And so the town hall is slow on those days. In my 7 years here, the only thing that we have done different ever when there has been a holiday, a Thanksgiving or a Christmas, I forget which one it was. It might have been Christmas. and the town hall was open until 6 on the day before because it was a Wednesday. We've closed at 5 instead of 6. And that has been because our support offices close then also, the specific to the town clerk, the DMV. And so that's the only schedule adjustment we've made.
So the request for this is for the employees, not for the Barrington residents.
This request is from the town clerk for her office. I think if the select board was going to consider it, I think the same metric should apply to the town hall, but this is from the town clerk for her office.
I see it both for residents, though. I mean, if I were a resident, I would want to do my business on Christmas Eve earlier than the day, rather than come in.
Unless
after
you're a
and-
working person who doesn't get out until later on. And I think that's unfortunately, so in human resources, there's always this thought, once you do this, be ready to do it again and again and again, because it's much more difficult to pull things back when you've already let the horse out of the barn. So I think what I am hearing from you is, in the 7 years of your leadership, this has not been a decision we have made.
Correct.
I understand it. I think would be kind to the employees, but I'm not sure it's the best approach for residents. And that's the only comment I have. Anybody else?
I mean, I sort of think it is good for residents. I mean, 8 o'clock, you could maybe do your business and still get to work.
I'd say it's a balance, and I think I would be interested in, is this something that we have to finalize today? Because I would be interested to know if we have any information on traffic on the day before Christmas, because if we're looking at it from the residents' perspective and making sure that they have access, because it doesn't change the number of hours, it seems, if it's not a very highly trafficked day, then
I thought in her letter, she said sometimes it was almost non-existent.
I believe that.
On that day is very minimal, if not non-existent. And I can tell you confidently that Christmas Eve is, anytime we're open on Christmas Eve, the foot traffic is very slow. I will also tell you that residents that have come to the town hall looking for services on Christmas Eve or a day that we're very slow and they're surprised that we're open, they're very appreciative that we're here and providing services, because they're surprised that we're open. Oh, you're here. And so I think the status quo is that the town hall is open, normal hours on Christmas Eve. It's not approved holiday. Those are the hours, those are the advertised hours. That's the status quo. The only decision the select board would have to make is if you choose to change that. It's been requested here for the town clerk's office. Like I said, if you're going to consider changing it, I would encourage you to consider a plan for the entire town hall. But again, the police department, the fire department, recreation, the offices across the town are open on Christmas Eve. And so that is, or I should say, the recreation department that time of year, generally they follow the school holiday schedule because of before and after care. So that they have approval in the personnel policy to change approved holidays in Christmas. So don't quote me on, I don't know when the school holidays are relative to Christmas Eve, but they follow school holidays. And to your question, Person Samaco, the decision doesn't have to be made now. I can certainly try to get any numbers that we have for foot traffic, but I'll tell you confidently that foot traffic is slow.
I think it would be important for us to know as well. Will there be one person in that office manning it until 6 p.m.? Or will it be the entire staff? Like, has she already approved paid time off for 3 out of 4 of the staff? And I say that because, like, we used to staff on holidays like this one person in the entire office as an emergent situation in human resources, and everyone else took the time off.
My directive to staff in the past, and so to be clear, I nor the select board supervise the town clerk. So the town clerk is able to set her schedule, and she is her own boss.
Understood.
Residents are her boss. The select board, and by extension, me as the town administrator, have authority over the staff of the town clerk's office. To your question, I believe that the town clerk is not going to work on Christmas Eve regardless. I think the impact is to the staff in her office. My directive to staff, primarily the town clerk and tax office, but the land use and building office also, is when we're open, there's somebody there, period. And there are times that come up when we can't have somebody there. A couple of weeks ago, the tax office, they had their annual conference, and it's important that we have our tax collector and deputy tax collector doing their continuing education. Now, fortunately, that's a time of year when the tax office isn't very busy. Election day, the town clerk's office is closed. There are some trainings that the town clerk's office has been closed for training, and it's important training that everybody's able to participate in. So there are times when those offices aren't open to the public. Building and land use are easier. Sometimes we just have the building and assessing administrative assistant covering for both sides, or the land use administrative assistant covering for both sides. But my directive to staff is that when we're open, the expectation is that somebody's there to be able to help somebody, even if it's a matter of, I can't help you with everything right now, but let me get your information, somebody will get back to you right away. And so my expectation would be that if the town hall is open for any hours on Christmas Eve, that there's a staff person, and it would probably only be one, available to the public in, both the town clerk's office, tax office, and then down at assessing, building, and land use.
Any chance you could do a quick shout out to the NHMA members and see if anybody else is any other municipalities are adjusting their hours?
This conversation circulates, not this specific conversation, but the specific conversation about holidays circulates regularly.
Okay.
And the consensus is generally municipalities are a customer service organization. You have approved holidays for a reason. Approved holidays are when you're closed. Other times you're open.
Understood. Okay.
Now there are some communities that have adopted, say, Juneteenth, national holiday, and have more than 12 approved holidays, but 12 is still on the generous side.
Did you have something?
I was going to say, one of the things that kind of compounds this is that Wednesday happens to be the late hours, which makes some difference in our consideration. I mean, if everyone was closing at 4:30, I think it'd be an easy decision. Staying open until 6 adds a little weight to this particular decision.
And the town clerk clarified that that her specific request isn't asking the select board to approve an additional, say, half holiday that staff not working would be using earned time. I don't think, and I'll look into labor laws, that the select board really cares. I don't think the select board can close the town hall and not pay somebody who wants to be here. And so that's not necessarily how it would play out in practice. But I think what she's saying is her staff are willing to use earned time to not work on the day before Christmas if the select board approves the office not being open.
Well, but she was just moving the hours from 8 to 1 or 8
But
to
one
2,
of the employees in that office works the morning hours, also not open to the public, but working in a support function for the office in the town hall. So would work the whole day anyways.
So 1 to 6 p.m. is when that office is typically open.
Correct.
If we did 12 to 5 p.m., we likely would still be meeting the needs of the residents and still allowing some leeway that would allow people to travel a little bit earlier.
In the past, I have supported closing the town hall early when the Wednesday holiday, or when there's a Thursday holiday and on Wednesday. And so, I think in the past, it related to, like I said, the support services being available. If the state isn't staying open until 6 on Wednesday of Christmas Eve, you know, there is some things we can do, but if we run into a problem.
Okay, so
then
we
it's-
need that answer too. If the state's closed and they can't put in a call to figure out a license plate transfer or something like that, I feel like that's important for us to know.
The vast majority of the work that they can do doesn't require calling the help desk at the state, but there are things that come up. And so you'd like to know what hours the state has on Christmas Eve.
I think that would help us.
And that would impact your decision-making enough to delay making a decision until you have that information.
Yes.
Personally, I would make a decision tonight.
I would
We're
not.
making a complex decision-making over.
I would
kind of
not.
Decision.
Oh, yeah, well, honestly, my decision would be not to allow the change, so,
And mine
I-
would be. So.
yeah. So I think having more answers would help.
Does anybody want to make a motion and make a decision, or is there a consensus that we'll wait for more information?
Yeah.
Okay. And so the more information is what the DMV hours are on Wednesday, the 24th of December. Okay. Is there other more information we're looking for?
I would,
We're actually gonna meet next week. so-
yeah, I mean, I would like to know, has there already been a sign off of people taking that day off and we're down to like 2 employees that day or something? I think that's gonna,
I don't think there's been a sign off because
Okay.
the expectation is that we're open and somebody's going to be there.
okay. So nobody's got plans as it stands right now.
Well, my understanding is that the town clerk is not working.
Just
Understood.
taking that as a holiday.
Okay.
or vacation day or something.
Gotcha.
Okay, I will come back with DMV hours on the 24th and
Okay.
we'll discuss it. We don't meet next week, Dan. We meet the 20th.
2 weeks.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking November where we meet, bang, bang, bang.
Bang, bang, bang.
Yeah,
But maybe just bang, bang.
November, we're gonna see each other a lot.
No, maybe just bang, bang. Remember the third?
The third is still up in the air. Okay, so
Okay,
next
thank you.
up is your, anything else you need to share with us?
No.
Okay, your select board reports. Alexander.
The zoning board of administration met and granted one special exception for a church to build an ADA compliant ramp inside a setback, and also granted a variance for a setback for just some updates to what used to be a 3-season camp.
Planning board, last meeting, a lot of it was things that we've already discussed at either our joint conservation subdivision meeting or the capital improvement discussion tonight. But one thing we were looking at is amending conservation subdivision regulations, and we were kind of stuck on 2 areas about open space and management of that open space and assessing a stewardship fee. And so we agreed to have just some very general language around that, so it allows different scenarios under that. So I'm assuming everybody will probably be on board with that. Tomorrow night is planning board, and the Coop Farm will be back for a design review.
Transfer station, you see the RFP, we spent a lot of time on that. Actually, five options, it's 4A and 4B, but basically 5 options. In order to make it set a goal of increasing the income by 20%. That may require increase in the bag prices at some point. We'll come up with that. State is going to start charging $3.50 a ton surcharge on everything that gets dumped. But they claim that they will reimburse us as a municipality. They'll return municipalities' expenditures to $3.50 on all the things that we do as a municipality. So the people who
This to tax the out-of-staters?
it'll be a big tax on the out-of-staters, and I believe all the private people who do pickup
Right.
would have to pay this $3.50, but the stuff we send get reimbursed, although no one knows exactly how that's going to work. So that's the law, so it will go into effect. Library just some interesting things there. Their budget process is ongoing, but the visits are up from 70 a day to an average of 100 a day. And I think subjectively, probably equal or perhaps more important is there's been a significant increase in the number of teenagers going to our library, which I think is very good. Also proposed to raise the non-resident card price to $100 from $70. And they're starting to do a 5-year tech improvement plan, which is like everyone else's, sort of like Rick and Mike had done. So I think that's a good sign. ABC, we talked about. School, we talked about.
Good.
Over to you.
Okay. So there has not been, other than our joint meeting that we attended with conservation, there's not been another conservation meeting. The Energy Committee, I'm sad to announce that Paul Panish is stepping aside from that role, and I wish to thank him on behalf of the entire select board, but more importantly, the entire Barrington community for his hard work in bringing renewable energy, decreasing costs, and being focused on what is really best, not just from a cost savings, but from a saving of our natural resources here in town by using various sources to evaluate energy and keep our costs down. So the community power finance update, current status as of August, $160,000 net gain for the town. Projections show a negative $50,000 net gain by the end of the rate period. Recommendation is that initial gains will be eliminated by the period end. Energy rates are rising across the board, not unique to energy through community power. There has been town hall performance reports, and in 2023, electric bill savings were $10,755. In 2024, $11,157, and year to date, $4,819. So hurrah for solar panels on the town hall. Library solar is also performing well with a bigger system and better orientation. And then just a breakdown of what they were going to do for the Town Center Day Sunday celebrations. And that's about what was reported out.
And Cindy Hoisington was elected chair of the Energy Committee and Rob Gibson vice chair.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. And that is all I would.
Brief non-public for legal.
Oh, okay. I'm going to open up public comment, but if you'd like to speak during the portion of public comment we're about to embark on, please mouse over your screen, click on the hand button. There's no one in-house. I'll wait 1 minute. And now I will close public comment and entertain a motion to enter non-public for purpose of legal.
I move we enter into non-public session for purposes of legal.
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call, please.
Samago, aye.
Capello, aye.
And Shrek, aye.
Article 5, 8:33, entering non-public. Aye, motion carries.
Welcome back.
You're back.
Welcome, everyone, back to our public meeting. I'd make a motion at this time to seal the minutes from the non-public session on legal for a period of
6 months.
6 months. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Manshek. Could I have a roll call, please?
Samaco, aye.
Capello, aye.
Answer, aye.
Hardikoff, aye. Motion carries. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
Second it.
And a roll call, please.
Samaco, aye.
Capello, aye.
Answer, aye.
Hardikoff, aye. Thank you all for your hard work.